"You seniors should stay home." The words cut through the boarding line like a slap. He yelled it at me, his voice loud enough for the whole gate to hear. But what none of us expected was how the flight attendant would answer, by giving me a seat. Airports always made me nervous, but after 65, they became survival drills. The rush of crowds, the constant announcements, the feeling that the world moved too fast for my slower steps. Still, I traveled, because family is worth the effort, and dignity is worth holding on to. That morning, I was flying to Denver to see my granddaughter's piano recital. I had been planning it for months, her first big performance. I wore my best travel clothes, a navy cardigan, comfortable shoes, and the silver necklace my late husband had given me. I wanted her to see me proud, not tired. The line to board was long, and the air was thick with impatience. Families wrestled with strollers, business people typed furiously on phones. And then came the voice, sharp, cruel. "You seniors should stay home." I froze. People turned. The man was maybe 40, tall, red-faced, with a backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked straight at me as though I had slowed the line by existing. Heat crawled up my neck. My mouth went dry. I wanted to say something, but the words tangled in my chest. All I could think was, is this what people see now when they look at me? A burden? The silence after his shout felt heavier than the noise. Some people looked away, pretending not to hear. A young woman behind me touched my elbow lightly, her eyes kind, but she didn't speak. I swallowed hard, forced myself to step forward, to keep moving. My boarding pass shook in my hand. I told myself I wouldn't let a stranger ruin this trip, but inside, the crack had already formed. At the gate, the attendant scanned my pass with a smile, but I could still feel the man's words echoing behind me. I thought the humiliation would end there. What I didn't know was that it was only the beginning, because the flight attendant had heard it too. And she wasn't about to let it slide. Inside the jet bridge, air hissed like a secret. People compressed into a shape that didn't feel human. Bags knocking knees, shoulders bumping apologies that weren't quite sincere. I focused on small tasks. Breathe, step, smile at the flight attendant. Her name tag read, "Reed," eyes steady, mouth kind. The kind of kindness that can tell time. Who needs help now? Who can wait 1 minute more? "Welcome aboard," she said to me, not by reflex, but by choice. Her gaze did a quick, soft inventory. My trembling hand on the rail, the silver necklace, the carton of homemade cookies for my granddaughter tucked carefully in my tote. And something in her face changed, like a decision settling. Behind me, the man with the backpack barreled forward, jamming the line. "Can we move?" he barked to no one and everyone. People shrank to make him bigger. A second attendant, a redhead in a tight bun, met Reed's eyes. "That him?" she murmured. Reed gave a small nod. No drama, just information moving to the right place. Row numbers blinked past like mile markers. My seat, 23C, aisle, waited like a little promise. As I slid my bag beneath, the young woman from the gate slipped in beside me at 23B. "Do you want the window?" she offered instantly, as if rearranging herself might iron the world flatter. I smiled. "Aisle helps my knees," I said. She nodded, relief blooming because she could still help without giving something up. The man clomped to 10A, Economy Plus, extra legroom, early exit. He tossed his bag into the bin above any row he liked, ignoring the numbers, because, of course, he did. He sat, sprawled, headphones already on, a shield against the world he bruised. Reed moved down the aisle with that tuned, suspended calm flight attendants wear like armor. She paused at his row. "Sir, can I check the size of your backpack for under-seat clearance?" Light as rain, firm as stone. He yanked one ear cup off. "It's fine. It will need to go fully under the seat, or into the overhead above your row," she said, still friendly. "Right now, it's blocking the exit path." He sighed the way people sigh when they'd rather be obeyed than safe. "Whatever," he said, pushing it with his shoe like a child. Reed stayed. "Also, quick word." She bent, eyes level, voice low enough to respect privacy, loud enough to carry meaning. "We heard you in the boarding area. We don't allow harassing language toward other passengers. I'm going to ask you to keep it respectful on board." His face sharpened. "I didn't harass anyone. You singled out an older passenger and told her to stay home," Reed replied, still calm. "We won't have that." He laughed, that small, cruel laugh people use when they want to make your boundaries sound ridiculous. Free speech? Safety speech, Reed said. We keep the cabin safe. That includes dignity. She straightened. I'll be right back, sir. She headed forward. The redhead, Martinez, her pin said, pivoted from the galley to our row. Ma'am, she whispered to me, how are you doing? I'm okay, I lied. The lie didn't insult her. It gave her a place to stand. Cookies for someone? Martinez asked, glancing at the tote. My granddaughter, I said, and the word steadied me like a railing. Her first recital? Big day, she smiled. Let's make it there easy. The PA chimed. Boarding complete, the captain said, voice warm gravel, but no door thunked shut. A pause lived where momentum should. Reed returned to row 10 with a small tablet and a decision. Sir, she said, we're reseating you today. He sat up. What? Why? For cabin safety and comfort, she said. We're moving you to 31E, middle, last third of the cabin. Not punishment exactly, just proximity removed from entitlement. This is ridiculous, he spat. I paid for extra legroom. I understand, Reed said. You're being reseated due to your conduct. If you prefer not to travel with us today, we can deplane and involve a gate agent. The cabin's air changed, quiet, tense, electric. He looked around, suddenly aware of witnesses. His jaw worked. Fine, he said, flinging his backpack down the aisle as if gravity owed him service. Reed didn't flinch. Thank you. She turned to Martinez. Open 10A. Martinez nodded, then walked straight to our row. She crouched by my seat so she didn't have to look down at me. Ma'am, she said softly, would you like 10A? Extra legroom, quieter ride. I blinked. That's his seat. It was, Reed said, now beside her. Words have weight, so do actions. Around here, both have consequences. My heart thumped in a way that wasn't fear. It was something like dignity pulling a chair for itself. Are you sure? I asked, because politeness is a reflex that outlives injury. We're sure, Reed said, and if you'd rather stay put, we'll honor that too. I stood, knees grateful. The young woman at 23B squeezed my hand as I passed. Play something beautiful for your granddaughter, she whispered, and I almost laughed at the image. Me at a tiny piano, but I understood. Show up with joy. As I settled into 10A, the cabin changed shape. Space breathed around my knees. The window framed a slice of wing bright as a promise. Reed stowed my tote within reach like it was a fragile instrument. From the back, I felt the man's stare crawl and slide off. It didn't stick, not anymore. The captain's voice returned. Flight attendants, prepare doors for departure. The thunk came this time, decisive, like a period at the end of a sentence that had wandered too long. Reed leaned in one more time. You okay? I looked up at her. The practiced calm, the steel wrapped in kindness. Better than okay, I said. Thank you. She smiled. Let's go make a little girl proud. The plane pushed back. The runway unfurled. Wheels lifted. And the weight that had settled on me at the gate, those 5 words flung like a stone, stayed on the ground where it belonged. Somewhere over cloud, a thought landed. I hadn't asked for justice. I hadn't demanded a show, but she gave the cabin a lesson anyway. Gentle and exact. Not by speech, by seating chart. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the world had not decided I was in the way, but in the right place. Once airborne, the cabin shifted into its usual rhythm. Engines humming like a lullaby, passengers reaching for headphones, children pressing faces against windows. But under the surface, tension lingered. Everyone had heard what happened at the gate. Everyone had seen the swap. I sat in 10A, the seat that wasn't supposed to be mine, knees stretched for the first time in years. It felt like more than legroom. It felt like a statement. Yet part of me still burned with the sting of his words. You seniors should stay home. The man sat somewhere in the back now, squeezed into 31E, and though I couldn't see him, I felt his resentment pulsing like static. The young woman from 23B walked past me on her way to the restroom. She leaned close and whispered, he got what he deserved. Her eyes glimmered with a quiet defiance. For a moment, I didn't feel alone. Across the aisle, a boy no older than 12 tugged at his mother's sleeve and asked, just loud enough, why did that lady get moved up here? The mother hesitated. Then she met my eyes and said, because kindness matters, sweetheart, and so do consequences. Her words warmed me more than the thin airline blanket ever could. Reed, the attendant, made her rounds with practiced grace, checking belts and smiles. When she reached my row, she crouched again, low voice wrapped in privacy. "Any trouble from the back?" she asked. "No," I said, "but thank you. I didn't expect anyone to stand up for me." She tilted her head, eyes soft but steady. "We don't let bullies fly unchecked. Airplanes are small towns in the sky. What happens here stays with people." I thought of my granddaughter, thought of her tiny hands on piano keys, playing notes into a hall full of strangers. I wanted her to grow up in a world where voices of cruelty didn't drown out voices of care. Midway through the flight, as drinks clinked on trays, a ripple of murmurs spread from the back. Heads turned. I caught a glimpse of him, standing, gesturing angrily at Martinez, the red-headed attendant. The PA clicked on, her voice crisp. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Everything is under control." Reed slipped past, firm steps down the aisle. The whispers grew, but I stayed still, hands folded over my necklet. I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the entire cabin watching what justice looked like when spoken softly, but enforced with steel. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an afterthought in an airport story. I felt like the lesson. The seatbelt sign blinked on with a soft chime, though the air outside was calm. The real turbulence was inside the cabin. From row 31, voices rose. One voice, really, his. The man who had barked me into silence at the gate now barked at Martinez, demanding his rights, his paid seat, his respect. Passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably, shoulders hunched as if ducking could make them invisible. A baby whimpered, sensing the unease. The hum of the engines became the soundtrack to his tantrum. I craned slightly, catching only glimpses between heads, his hands cutting the air, his face red with the same fury that had targeted me. I pressed my palms together in my lap, whispering inwardly, "Don't let him ruin this. Don't let him steal this flight, too." Reed appeared, calm embodied. She strode down the aisle, her voice level but firm, a steadying anchor. "Sir, we've discussed this. Your behavior is disturbing other passengers. You need to remain seated and respectful." He scoffed, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "You're humiliating me. Over nothing." A murmur rippled. A man in row 29 spoke quietly but audibly. "It wasn't nothing." A woman across the aisle nodded. We heard him. Reed held her ground, hands clasped loosely at her waist, like she had all the time in the world. "This is your final warning. Sit down, quietly, or we divert." The word divert carried weight. Even those who didn't know airline policy straightened in their seats. Diverting meant delays, missed connection, chaos. The idea that one man could cause that tightened the air like a screw. He dropped into his seat with a thud, muttering curses that melted into the drone of engine. Reed waited 2 full beats, then turned, not triumphant, not smug, just steady. As she walked back up the aisle, passengers exhaled collectively, like pressure releasing from a sealed cabin. I watched her pass, the poise in every step, and thought of something my husband used to say. Real authority doesn't shout, it simply doesn't move. I looked out the window. Clouds drifted like soft continents beneath us, serene and unaware. Inside, the cabin was quieter now, but the lesson lingered in the recycled air. For the first time since boarding, I allowed myself to close my eyes. My seat was still mine, 10A, the one dignity had placed me in, and no amount of shouting from the back could take that away. After the confrontation, the engine's hum became almost soothing again. Still, the echo of his outburst clung to the cabin like smoke. I sipped ginger ale, trying to steady the knot in my chest. Then something unexpected happened. The woman across from me, gray hair tucked neatly, pearls at her ears, leaned over the aisle. "You handled yourself with grace," she whispered. "Don't let his ugliness stick." Her words were quiet, but they landed like a bomb. A young man 2 rows back caught my eye. He raised his soda can slightly, like a toast. His gesture said, "We saw. We're with you." Even the boy who had asked his mother earlier piped up again, not whispering this time. "Mom, she looks like Grandma. Grandma's strong, too." His mother squeezed his hand, smiling softly in my direction. For years, I had feared becoming invisible with age. a ghost moving through airports too quickly designed for the young. But in that moment, I wasn't invisible. I was seen for enduring, for staying seated with dignity, while others shouted themselves small. Reed came by with a tray of snacks. "Complimentary," she said, setting one gently on my tray table. A small package of almond, nothing grand, but her eyes carried weight. This was recognition, not charity. "Thank you," I whispered. She gave a nod that said, "You don't owe thanks." He owed respect. The rest of the cabin seemed lighter, as if strangers had silently agreed to protect the fragile bubble of calm we had rebuilt. People exchanged knowing looks, tiny smiles that acknowledged we'd all witnessed the same lesson. I touched the silver necklace at my throat, thinking of my granddaughter. One day she would face her own careless words, her own storms of disrespect. I hoped she would remember her grandmother, still traveling, still present, still claiming space in a world that sometimes told her not to. And maybe, just maybe, she would know that dignity can't be shouted down. The cabin dimmed as the shades were drawn. Soft blue light washed over rows of faces, some dozing, some reading. I leaned back, my body still, but my mind restless. For years, airports had been places of survival for me. Long lines, heavy bags, the pressure to keep up. I'd told myself, just endure, just get through it. But today, something shifted. Today I realized I was more than someone enduring. I was someone seen. I thought of the insult at the gate, how it had pierced me. But now, from the comfort of 10A, the wound felt less sharp. It had been met with action, swift, fair, undeniable. And in the wake of that, support had bloomed around me like unexpected flowers. I remembered my husband's words, ones he'd said when life's battles felt unfair. "You don't have to fight every storm, Nora. Sometimes the world will surprise you and fight beside you." And here, at 30,000 feet, the world had done just that. Strangers, attendants, even a child. They had all reminded me I wasn't a burden. I was a passenger with as much right to fly as anyone else. I looked down at my hands, veined and lined with time, and felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Pride. Not just pride for surviving, but pride for being part of a moment that proved kindness still had a seat in this world. When Reed passed again, I stopped her. "You didn't have to do that for me," I said softly. She tilted her head. "Ma'am, we didn't do it for you. We did it because it was right. There's a difference." Her words settled into me like a stone in a riverbed, firm, unmoving. The engines droned, steady as a heartbeat. I realized travel had changed for me that day. Airports, airplanes, the strangers I once feared, they weren't just obstacles anymore. They were witnesses, and sometimes allies. By the time the captain announced our descent into Denver, I wasn't just anticipating my granddaughter's recital. I was carrying a story, one she would one day hear. A story about dignity defended, not demanded. The descent began with the familiar tilt of the wing and the low announcement, "Cabin crew, prepare for arrival." The city of Denver stretched below, lights blinking like scattered jewels. My heart quickened, not from nerves, but from anticipation. I thought of my granddaughter, tiny fingers dancing over piano keys, waiting for me in a recital hall. I had almost let one man's words cast a shadow on this trip. Almost. But now, I carried something brighter. When the wheels touched down with a soft thud, the cabin filled with the usual rustle of buckles and bags. Reed's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with us. Remember, kindness travels farther than you think." A pause, deliberate, like she knew the cabin would connect the dots. As we taxied to the gate, passengers exchanged those fleeting smiles that strangers share when they've lived through the same small storm. I felt lighter, as if the insult had been left behind in the clouds. The man in 31E tried to push past when the doors opened, but no one moved aside. People held their ground, not aggressively, just firmly. He was forced to wait, to follow instead of lead. For once, silence answered him better than words. I stepped into the terminal, my tote safe, my cookies intact, and dignity sitting on my shoulders like a shawl. My brother was waiting near baggage claim, waving wildly. "Mom's already inside saving you a seat," he joked, and the double meaning made me laugh harder than I had in weeks. Hours later, I sat in a crowded auditorium. The lights dimmed, the hush fell, and there she was, my granddaughter, straight-backed, eyes wide, ready to play. When she spotted me in the audience, her face lit up. I raised my hand, necklace glinting, and she nodded as if to say, "You made it." Her first notes rang clear, fragile, but steady. And I realized this was the truest victory of all. Not the free seat, not the justice served, but the reminder that my presence mattered, that at 65, 70, 80, we don't stay home. We keep showing up. Because sometimes just being there, despite the noise, is the bravest note in the song.